Now available in paperback and e-readers, The Temptation of John Haynes. Given to temptation, pick up this action-packed African-American paranormal romance. Get The Temptation of John Haynes in paperback and e-readers today. Travis King, the U.S. soldier who ran across the South Korean border into the nation of North Korea, says his reasons for running across the border into the communist nation of North Korea was due to the racism and discrimination he encountered in America and the racism and discrimination that he encountered in the U.S. military. Now, in a statement that North Korean officials made about Travis King to acknowledge his presence in North Korea, they say that Travis King wants refuge in North Korea because of the alleged inhuman maltreatment and racial discrimination that Travis King encountered in the United States and the military. Now, Travis King's problems started a couple of months ago when he was deployed to South Korea, and as the 23-year-old soldier was deployed to South Korea, he went to a South Korean nightclub and allegedly got into a fight with an individual at that South Korean nightclub, and this incident led to Travis King getting arrested and charged as related to that assault, and he was also charged and fined for kicking the door of a South Korean police car and wound up being put in a jail in South Korea for 43 days. Now, after Travis King wound up serving his sentence for this incident, he wound up being sent back to the U.S. military, and after being sent back to the U.S. military, they decided to send him back to Texas, where he was going to face disciplinary charges from the U.S. military. Now, as Travis King was being escorted back to America by officials, he decided to go on a tour with as related to the North Korean and South Korean border, and as he was a part of that group of tourists, Travis King decided to bolt to the North Korean side of the border, where he was quickly captured by North Korean officials. Now, after getting captured by these North Korean officials, that's when there was a whole lot of coverage of his story, and that's when I did the video calling him Private Pookie. Now, the reason why I called him Private Pookie is because his decision to run across the South Korean border into North Korea was an emotional and impulsive one, and from reports it's stated by his uncle that he says that Travis King really wasn't himself. Now, when I listen to the uncle as related to his statements, it really shows me that Travis King definitely was not fit for duty in the U.S. military, and it shows me that he's not fit for duty in the U.S. military because you have to have a strong discipline and resolve in order to be a part of our armed forces. Unfortunately, what has been happening with our U.S. military is that they have been having a hard time finding individuals to be soldiers in the U.S. military, and because of this, they have been lowering their standards and looking to just take whoever they can find. And that's where Travis King wound up becoming a part of the U.S. military in 2021 and wound up becoming a private second class in the U.S. military. He wound up becoming a part of our U.S. military, and in less than 3 years has shown that he really was not really fit for being a part of the service. Now, usually drill sergeants can easily observe an individual's behavior and see whether or not they are fit for service, but because their enlistment quotas are not being met, they're looking to give passes to individuals that would have been rejected in the past. And this is what's happened with Travis King. He wound up getting into the military and wound up being deployed. And as he was being deployed, he really showed again that he's not really somebody who should have stayed in the service, because he just did not have those male life skills or those male survival skills. Now, Travis King was one of these guys who I believe, again, was a follower. He wanted to follow in the footsteps of his brother and his maternal grandfather, and he wanted to go serve in the military. Unfortunately, he just did not have the discipline and resolve to be a soldier. Now, I've heard a lot about the racism that black soldiers have encountered from YouTubers like Mad Voodoo Man and Mr. Superboy, who talked about much of the racism they encountered over the course of their deployment. And in both of those cases of Mad Voodoo Man and Mr. Superboy, those men were raised by fathers, and in the case of Mr. Superboy, he did have a father who did tell him about the racism that you would encounter as a black man, and that racism is something black men we know we have to deal with as related to being a part of Western society and even Eastern societies like North Korea. But sadly, Travis King, I don't think, got a good lesson in understanding about being a black man in the world, and because he never got any sort of teaching about life in the world as a black man and how life is different for a black man than any other man in the world, he really wasn't prepared for that world out there. And I believe he really got a major shock to his system as related to life in the world outside of America. And he got that major shock to his system because he thought he was going to be able to go out to other parts of the world and possibly not experience any racism. He probably was one of these guys, like many of the passport bros, who thought, oh, I'm going to be able to go overseas and they're going to treat me different. But what he found as he entered the military was he ran into a lot of racism from many of the soldiers in the military, and he possibly ran into racism as he was going into South Korea. Moreover, what he also ran into was again, culture shock as he entered that foreign country, and he also was ill prepared to deal with that culture shock, and he possibly didn't get any sort of preparation like many other seasoned soldiers I've heard from YouTube as they were talking about different topics. Many of the people who serve in our armed forces, they oftentimes tell you that when you're on the base, you have to follow the U.S. laws, but once you wind up leaving that base, you have to wind up following the laws and customs in that country. And this is something that Travis King definitely didn't get any sort of preparation on, because as he was possibly on leave, he decided to go to one of these clubs, allegedly, and as he went into this club, he got into a fight with someone, and then he got arrested, and also then as he was being arrested, he then wound up damaging a police car. Now, this kind of stuff, a guy in America could possibly get charged with misdemeanors, but in these countries like South Korea, the laws are different, and these countries have different laws again, and in that country, they basically saw it as something serious as related to him going out here and getting into that fight and then destroying police property. They wound up locking up Travis King for over 40 days, and after they wound up locking up Travis King for over 40 days. That's when he wound up, as his uncle claims, changing. And as he wound up changing, he was becoming filled with anxiety and fear, because as a U.S. soldier, he was not only going to be charged in those South Korean courts, he was also going to have to deal with a military court, and military courts ain't no joke. Now, from what I've heard from other YouTubers who have served in the military, you do not want to wind up in a military court, because in a military court, it works differently than a court in state or federal, because in a military court, you are basically guilty until proven innocent, and you basically are going to wind up with a conviction where you can wind up with either a whole lot more jail time, or you can wind up with a whole lot more jail time and a dishonorable discharge. And this prospect of winding up on the road to winding up with a military conviction and a dishonorable discharge, this basically terrified Travis King, and it was his motivation to go into North Korea thinking that he could find some refuge. But I don't believe Travis King is going to find any refuge. No, what I believe he's going to find is more racism. And what makes me believe that he is going to find more racism is the way they are classifying him as they acknowledge him. Now, they don't see him as a refugee. They see him as someone who entered the country illegally, and they are classifying him as an intruder. And with that classification of intruder, they basically are saying that they don't really see him as someone that they consider to be important. And this is where the racism comes in that shows us that white supremacy is global, because we have two countries, the U.S. and South Korea, and both countries really don't want Travis King, a black member of the military, as related to in their countries. And again, in both cases, they're showing how little they regard this black man's life, because they're saying, oh, this black man is an intruder in North Korea. They're saying, again, he's an intruder. They're not doing like Americans are doing with all of these individuals here in New York City, calling him an asylum seeker. No, they're calling him an intruder, and they are treating him as an intruder. And while they go out here and acknowledge this with the State Department, they really, again, don't see him as somebody they want in their country. So what they're looking to do is hold Travis King until they can find a way to send Travis King, who I call Private Pookie, right back to the United States, because they don't see any economic or political value to a Travis King. And because they don't see any economic or political value to Travis King, a private second class, what they want to do with Travis King is basically go through the motions and go out here and try to find some way to try to humiliate the United States, which is not something that you can really do in this case, because when it comes to the United States, they are a white supremacist and racist country, and a black defector is not somebody they consider a high-value individual as related to looking to secure a return to the country. And they're not really looking to secure the return to the country of an individual who basically wound up leaving the country on his own volition, and wound up leaving the country on his own volition and running out of U.S. jurisdiction into a rogue nation. And that's what really where Travis King basically is jammed up. And while his parents are desperately looking to try to get him back, I don't see the American officials really looking too enthusiastically at getting him back, because there's not much political brownie points they can get for trying to secure the return of Private Pookie for him to wind up going back to America, where he will be tried and convicted for these crimes in South Korea that he allegedly participated in, and for him to receive a dishonorable discharge, which means that he won't be able to receive any benefits as related to service in the military, such as the GI Bill or any other benefits. There's not really much that anybody would receive as a benefit to trying to secure the release of Travis King. I mean, I don't really see the Biden administration going out here to put its neck on the line like it would for Brittany Griner, because Brittany Griner was a celebrity, so trying to secure her release from the Russians was a benefit to them. But trying to secure the release of a Travis King, even with an election year, I don't really see them running to go get Private Pookie out of North Korea. I don't really see anybody outside really even concerned with it. And even if they did release Private Pookie, I believe this would be an ignominious thing that would happen to this black man, because again, in a global system of white supremacy, they would look to go out here and try to find a way to discard Private Pookie, because Private Pookie is not somebody that the North Koreans would see as an asset to them as related to any sort of diplomacy, nor would the U.S. State Department see Private Pookie as somebody they would go out here and want to really talk about getting back. Yes, they will again acknowledge that they do have Private Travis King in North Korean custody, and they would look to again try to find some quiet way to bring him back to America. But the way things were done will not be done with the same pomp and circumstance that Brittany Griner released, because Travis King basically is somebody nobody in either country respects. And while Travis King thought he would go to North Korea and he thought they would give him refuge, they weren't looking to give him refuge, because again, when it comes down to the North Koreans, they don't really respect black people. And again, yes, they'll go out, guy like Kim Jong-un will celebrate with the Dennis Rodman because he's a celebrity. But as for the average, everyday, common black man, they basically see him like Pookie or Ray Ray. And Travis King thought, oh, I'm trying to get away from the white supremacy, not understanding white supremacy is global, and the system of white supremacy is anti-black, whether it's in a capitalist country or a communist country. They do not respect black people, and this is the hard lesson that Travis King is learning right now. And again, I call him Private Pookie because he was not really trained as related to life in the world as a black man. He was not really taught about male life skills or male survival skills. He thought he could follow in his brother and his maternal grandfather's footsteps. Unfortunately, they didn't really teach him about that world and how it worked as related to racism. And as that world is, it's a very racist place. America is racist. These countries like South Korea are racist. The military is racist. And you have to know how to go out here and move as related to this world and the white supremacy and racism in it. Because if you don't know how to move, what will happen is you will wind up getting emotional. You will wind up getting impulsive. You will wind up going out here and acting on your emotions as related to a situation. And sadly, you wind up jamming yourself up the way Travis King did. And when you jam yourself up, what will happen is these racists will find a way to take advantage of it, to make an example out of you. And that's sadly what happened to Travis King. He wound up being made an example of by white supremacy because of his inexperience about life as a black man and how a black man has to move. He really didn't understand that the military is a place that's filled with a lot of racists. I mean, Tariq talks about this as related to the race soldiers, because a lot of the racists come into the military looking to get that military training so that they can go out here and be participating in the future race war. So there's a lot of racists out here who are in the military. They've been there for years, but you have to go out here and know how to move out here so that you don't wind up getting into it with them, and you don't wind up having to go out here and jam yourself up by getting into it with them. So that's something Travis King never was trained on, nor was he ever trained on how to understand how the world is different out here for black men, out even in America and abroad. And when you're in the military, like many people have said on many shows, like Jason Black's The Business, they have tried to tell people when you go out here in the military, when you're on the base, you're a part of American soil, but once you leave the base, you are a part of that country, and you're in that country, and you need to watch what you're doing when you're in these countries, because you have a target on your back. One, because you're a member of the U.S. military, and two, you have a target on your back because you are a black man, and people all over the world don't like black men, especially heterosexual black men. So you gotta watch how you move in these countries, because people are looking to jam you up, and if you don't know how to move in these countries, you can wind up getting up yourself jammed up to the point where you're not able to go out here and be able to live any sort of quality of life at all. So you really gotta watch yourself out here, or you could wind up in a tragic situation like Travis King, as who I call Private Pookie, a situation where you're basically counting down the days until white supremacy in North Korea and in America find a way to jam you up even worse than what you were in before. Now, if you want to pick up some of my books on the SJS Direct imprint, you can find those books in paperback and Kindle format at Amazon.com and other online bookstores like Barnes & Noble, Google Play, the iBookstore, Smashwords, and Walmart and Target. And if you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can send a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. If you're interested in making six figures, then check out Ron Armstrong's Six-Figure PM program. In just 6 short weeks, you'll be trained to become a digital project manager, where you'll learn to build websites, apps, social media campaigns, and digital games. Best of all, you'll be the boss and manage your own team. No coding experience is required, and once you complete the program, you'll receive help in finding your first six-figure job. The fee for the program is extremely affordable, so check it out now at www.thesixfigurepm.com. Classes are starting soon, so you'll want to enroll as soon as possible. Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, 1987. Learn lessons about life and teenage love in the 1980s in this coming-of-age John Haynes story. Get your copy of John Haynes, 1987 in paperback and e-readers at Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.